As her fingers seek crevices, spaces between the stones, she thinks of Prince Salim. Every breath I take belongs to you. I am yours, my heart. The men who had raised these walls around her had looked into her eyes with such pity. Surely one of them would have left a gap. But no, not even 1/100th of an inch. They would not risk the displeasure of the emperor, ruler of Hindustan, the man who had Anarkali entombed alive. A slave girl married to the prince? Never. She takes a deep breath and presses her palms against the stone. Okay. What I just read out to you was a collaborative story between Annie Zaidi and myself, Mandy. So it was a great collaboration between writer and illustrator. Are you happy for me to introduce the book? Okay. The story is one of many in an anthology called Eat the Sky and Drink the Ocean, as you can see here. It contains the work of 20 writers and illustrators. There's 6 graphic stories, and there's also a play script. Eat the Sky and Drink the Ocean is a book of speculative fiction written by women for everybody. The idea for the book arose when 3 writers, 2 from India and 1 from Melbourne in Australia, were talking about the idea of publishing a book about women's issues, about how women... What's that, sorry? Oh, are you not hearing me? I'm so sorry. Okay, I sound really loud to myself, but is that better? Okay, I feel like I'm yelling at you, but okay. Sorry, did you get any of what I said before? You did? All right, okay. All right, I'll just hold it. That sounds better. So yeah, they were talking about wouldn't it be good to get a whole lot of women writers to not only write stories about alternative futures for women, breaking boundaries, thinking about breaking free of the confinements of the everyday, but also to collaborate, have a cross-cultural collaboration between India and Australia. And at the same time that they were talking about this, in 2012, India and Melbourne at the same time had been really rocked by some very horrific crimes against women. And coming from Melbourne, I know that there was a huge outpouring of grief and anger at events. And so this really fueled the editors to want to give women the opportunity to address their fears and their hopes, and to maybe have the freedom to think about creating and imagining an alternative future for women. And so that's pretty much the premise of where Annie and I came together to write our story. Now, should I pass it on to you?
Yes.
Fantastic.
This is a fairly grown-up audience, not too many children, so I think most of you will know the original story of Anarkali, and for those of you who don't, Anarkali is a legend and perhaps a myth. There is no historical basis for Anarkali's story. We don't know if she actually existed, but what is interesting to me about Anarkali's story is that it is, in a sense, speculative fiction to start with. It places a character in actual historical settings. We know that Emperor was the ruler of a large part of Hindustan. We know that his son was called Salim, and he later went on to become Emperor Jahangir. Somebody in our history decided to write the story of Anarkali, a slave girl, perhaps a dancer, we are not very sure, who had a romance with Salim. But in this story, the story that has been handed down to us and which we have received over the centuries, Salim fights the war for Anarkali. A romance has been woven in, and it makes it universal in a sense. The story for power develops a small, personal, human quality which everyone can identify with, fighting your parents for love. I grew up on this legend. I grew up believing Anarkali was real actually, but all of us have seen Mughal e Azam, and that was the Anarkali that I remembered. And one thing bothered me about this story, even when I was a little girl and I saw that big movie, what really bothered me was what happens to Anarkali, that she is entombed alive. And whether he couldn't or whether he didn't, her lover allowed it to happen. And not only did he allow it to happen, but that he did not give up power after that. That he went on to take the throne and went on to live his life as he did and went on to marry maybe many women. And Anarkali just died. And that just always bothered me a little bit. In the movie, in one version of the movie, she doesn't die. Somehow she disappears. But in any case, she disappears. She goes away. And when we started this collaboration, Mandy and I met for the first time in Australia, we didn't know what we were going to write about. We talked about women, we talked about what happens to women, we talked about rebellion, we talked about many different things, and we met at this cafe. And when we were talking, one of the things that we did was that we talked about, is that the cafe? Yes,
Yeah,
that is the cafe we met
I
at.
found the cafe on the internet.
Yeah, and it had a lovely brick facade, and we were just having a general conversation about something else. And somehow we started talking about the power to walk through walls, and you know how lovely it would be if you had the power, like a superpower, to just walk through walls. And immediately the first thing that snapped into my head was an Anarkali story, and I shared that with Mandy. And we started talking about the possibilities of this, of taking a story, which is a myth, which is well entrenched in everybody's life and history and so on, and to take that and to give Anarkali some power, to take that back and give her that power, and then see what she does with that power. And then we collaborated on the story based on that, of that conversation.
And I didn't grow up with that story. Australia's funny, it's got a really long history. It's got a 40,000-year-old history. But a lot of our stories aren't necessarily from, that we are ingrained in our bodies and in our upbringing, aren't necessarily from our Indigenous Australians. So we have a mix of stories, but I don't think I'm speaking for myself, I don't have as rich a sort of storytelling passing on of stories as I think some cultures do. I wish I did. And so I love the idea that Anarkali would be a story that I heard for the first time. And when I heard it, I was like, so what happens? What happens to her? Is that the way it ends?
Yes.
And so that's, it felt like, oh, okay, because I think being a cartoonist, there's often a transformative element to characters going through a journey through a story. And often there's a moral or an ethical conclusion that can be relatable to life. And so I did wonder about this woman, and in stories, our characters feel real to us. And Anarkali, she felt real to me. I know it's a story, but I fretted for her. I wondered how horrible it would have been, her reality of being walled up. And so it was really wonderful for us to talk together about how can we get Anarkali to decide on her own future.
Yeah, would you like to show some of your work as in how it built up?
Yes, I'd love
in
to.
that? Because
Okay.
for us, the collaboration was really interesting. She was in another country, I was in another country. We were discussing, and I think this is true of all the writers, half of them in India, half in Australia. We were building up towards finding common ground, because you find common ground both visually and in a narrative sense and in a socio-historical sense. How do we make the myths and stories of one group of people resonate with the myths and stories of another group of people? And I found it very interesting because I sent some slides and references and my visual references to her,
a cartoonist, even if I'm writing about contemporary issues, I'm still using the language of a lot of myth storytelling. I'm using images to communicate. I'm also using visual metaphor. I'm expressing internal states in a visual way that might look, well, are obviously things that can't possibly exist in real life, but when a reader is reading it, they understand that it's an expression of a thought that is usually an invisible thing. Kind of like in comics, we use line work to show movement. We use line work to show an emotional state, and it transcends words and even recognizable symbols. So line work, I think there's just such a good relationship between mythical storytelling and comics. So doing the research, I fell absolutely in love with the imagery that I was receiving from Annie, which I will show you. And I also did a whole lot of research myself. And this also brings to light the idea of collaboration through technology. I've been cartooning for 20 years. When I first started cartooning, the internet wasn't around. Either were digital cameras. I had to get pictorial references from either life drawing or from taking photographs with film. It was a very laborious process, or using my imagination. But nowadays, you can get a lot more accurate, particularly when telling historical stories. So, okay. So, I first did a really daggy thing and looked at Wikipedia to get the basic kind of ideas, and found a couple of images.
Well, the interesting things you will notice about Anarkali and all depictions of Anarkali, photographic film references, are that she's portrayed not only as beautiful but also very ornately done up. And that's another thing we were talking about. She's only a slave girl. What are the chances that she will be dressed up like an empress? And why do we keep dressing her up as an empress in our... it kind of takes away from the fact that she was actually very powerless. If you dress her up as a queen, which she was not, what happens to her is because she is not a queen and because she is not a princess.
Yeah, so there was such a range of images available to interpret Anarkali. Like in any visual stories, there's an economy of space in a comic in terms of what you're putting into a panel, not only with the words, but within the images. So in comics, we use images and words combined to tell stories. And so every mark, every symbol in a panel is meaningful and has been chosen specifically. And so researching into drawing Anarkali, a lot of decisions had to be made on what she wore, which might seem really boring to talk about, but it actually speaks to the reader, and it conveys information about who she was and her condition. We decided, I'll just show you a few more pictures. So we sort of back and shared quite a lot of images between us. And Annie was great at saying to me when I sent pictures, going, "What about this picture?" She would say, "No, that's actually not representative of the clothing or
of the reality of her life."
Or even like the right century sometimes, I think. But there was a lot of amazing references, and because these, so many of the characters in the story were real people, you get a sense of who they were from the stories, the historical stories behind them. It made my job a lot easier. I had a lot of good reference. And I just, is it okay if I'll talk about the process a little bit? So, it's really amazing working with a writer. I think the hardest part of developing a story for me as a cartoonist is the writing. So I was really lucky. I got to work with this incredible writer who provided me with this amazing short story. So it was my job to take the short story, to interpret it visually, and to break it down into a script. And we did this through a back and forth email correspondence, so that we checked in with each other that we were both happy with how it was going. It was a very important part of the process. Okay, so this is where there's the thinking and pictures. So what I love about the story is that Anarkali came from an oral storytelling tradition. Sitting at a restaurant, or sitting eating, like you would have done thousands of years, people have done for 1,000 years, eating food and always inspires conversation, and a natural kind of a conversation arises And then this sort of transformation of words into storyboard, into comics. I tend to work pretty intuitively with my story writing. I will visualize a lot of how a page will be structured as a cartoonist, and get the general information in the story in a rough sketch. I'm a great big fan of the idea of doodling, of doing very rough, quick sketches, because often it's when you're tapping into the purest form of your expression. I think when you try too hard, you can stifle it. So I tend to show my roughs that normally no one ever sees, just to show that process. Okay, and so so it's an interesting interpretation of words into images, and how they read and how people perceive them. You know, we perceive images faster than we perceive words. They're instantaneous. Okay, so they're very, very powerful, and I think it's just I think it's why I like cartooning.
Yeah, the interesting thing you will notice, we talked a lot about this. How do you depict visually? In my text, what I had written is that, you know, I'd written that she's already inside the walls. The story starts after she is entombed. The walls have come up around her, and then how is she going to feel when she is inside that wall, when there is no escape now? And what Mandy's challenge was to depict darkness. How do you depict absolute darkness? She can't see anything, there is no light. So she used that very clever reverse device of making her white and everything else black. And that, of course, is a famous movie still, what you just saw. That's Madhubala in Anarkali, in Mughal-e-Azam, where she's playing Anarkali. That's also very visually
very
interesting,
dark. Yeah,
because it's very dark. She's in the dungeon and it's really dark.
And we decided that her clothing would be plain. There was sort of many variations of what she might be wearing, but we thought that having her represented in a plain way, like she was stripped of everything, including her ornate clothes and her jewellery and her sense of self. And so portraying her like that, and I was also thinking, when you're stripped of everything, when you've lost your possessions and your freedom and your identity on all levels, I think for Anarkali, it forced her to face not only her greatest fears, which are expressed in the story, but to push her out of that into a place of realizing that she was going to have to be the one to get her out of her predicament, that no one was going to come and help her.
That no help was coming, basically. She would have to find her own power.
And so we depict this by having a voice, a mysterious voice that seems to just be coming out of the ground. It's almost like Mother Earth is speaking through the ground to her. Because the fort, it's a Mughal fort. Am I saying that correctly? Excuse me, Mughal fort?
It's a Mughal fort.
Mughal
she's
fort.
outside the fort, and she's been entombed. The bricks have gone up. In one corner of the fort, the bricks have gone up, and the stones have been pushed into place, and that's when she hears a voice which tells her what to do.
And we both really loved the idea that because the fort is built already on a rock, that it's directly connected to the center of the earth. And because Anarkali can change her physical state to penetrate walls, because she finds the strength to do so, that she can also penetrate the earth, and it just sort of brings more of a connection to the elements and to herself belonging to all of the earth and all of humanity. And it's a story that is relevant to everybody. And there's an example of a picture reference I used. When I first saw this picture, because I have not been to India before, this is my first time, I'm very excited. But you know, I was looking at these images and going, wow, like that's incredible. It's just such an impressive structure, and it looks very foreboding at the same time.
And you would not want to be walled up in a structure like that.
No. So I had a wonderful time interpreting that visually, even playing around with a different way of drawing, specifically for this project. And there we have an example of Anarkali realizing that she has the ability to walk through walls. And apparently, you're saying in some of your emails that the fort walls are sometimes 8 to 10 feet thick.
fort walls are very, very thick. It's thick enough if you really want to for a whole battalion to walk through, if they could walk through walls. And they're very definitely thick enough to build tunnels inside. There are instances where there is a tunnel wide enough for two people to walk abreast within the wall. So yeah.
So we sort of we thought of like, okay, what would Anarkali do with her newfound freedom? Would she seek revenge? Would she seek freedom? What about Salim? She loved Salim. We didn't want to sacrifice her relationship.
I don't think she would want to sacrifice her relationship because Anarkali in collective imagination and in my imagination as well is defined by her relationship. She exists only in the course of this relationship. We don't know much about where she comes from, we don't know about where she goes, but we know her through her relationship with Salim. And from what I thought and knew about her, she wouldn't want to escape without Salim. That for her, her first thought on escape would be Salim. So then that is how I decided to write the story.
Yeah, and it was really fun. It was actually quite a funny story that so Anarkali, you have to read the story, but Anarkali finds Salim. She has to get past a whole lot of guards. She realizes that not only can she walk through fort walls, she can walk underground. So the guards are standing on the ground and she's kind of just walking underneath. And that, it's so great to be able to convince a reader that this could be possible because visual language, it speaks this truth. It's sort of believable because you can see it. It's a funny medium. So she finds Salim and he's a little bit, he's not, he's a bit resistant. He's not sure about what their future will be. And she makes a decision that she sacrificed a lot for him, and now it's time for him to sacrifice for her. And so
she demands that he give her.
So she needs to be the leader in this situation. She needs to teach him how to walk through walls, which is kind of like a mental concept, believing in yourself. You can do it. And so she leads him, and he's kind of quite reluctant, and he has a few problems, and he kind of has a few spluttering, coughing fits, and the editors requested that we make him look a little bit more macho or something, because they're like, why would Anarkali want to be with him? Look how he's behaving. And so we were like, okay, we need to like prove that he actually genuinely cared for her well-being, and it gave her good reason to request.
It is also about structures of power, because people who are born to power do not know how to live without power, and that is also a learning that comes really slowly. You're very reluctant to let go of it, and his big fear is that it is not so much that he does not care for her, but that he doesn't know how to live without his power.
Yes, it's like Anarkali has, and that brings us back to the theme of the book. She has speculated on an alternative future for herself, whereas now it's up to Salim to also think of an alternative future, particularly if they want to travel together through their journeys.
Should we ask one or two questions?
Oh, that would be a great idea. Okay.
We're running out of time, and we've been told that we've got only a couple of minutes left. But if somebody has any pressing questions, only one or two maybe. Yeah, we're kind of winding up.
Here we go. Yes?
Okay, first of all, the picture you showed earlier of a fort, are you telling us is that Agra fort?
No, not necessarily.
That's Mehrangarh from Jodhpur, right?
But see, it doesn't matter because as far as forts are concerned, it's only a visual representation of a fort. There were many, many forts. We don't know if Anarkali existed.
Fine.
If she did not exist, we don't know which particular fort she was walled up in. So it is not, we are not claiming that this fort is that fort or anything.
And could you please tell us as per your imagination, the age of Jahangir when he was in love with Anarkali? Because as per historical facts, among Mughals, Jahangir had the largest collection of concubines, and so that raises a question that, and as per the wage system, the concubines also had more power compared to the queen. you know, as per historical facts, when we dig into Mughal history,
As per historical facts, I don't think you will find that concubines had more power than the queen. One of her most famous and most powerful empresses was in fact Noor Jahan, who was married to Jahangir
Jahangir,
Salim
right.
later, and she had more power than Salim at one point.
Right.
I do not think that concubines had any particular power in an actual sense of state politics. In harems, whoever's the favorite for a little while, for a night or a week or a month or a year, might have some great power. But unless in our tradition, and I think this is true of all royalty and all monarchies, you derive your power from birth and marriage. So there is no way somebody who is not related to the emperor by either birth or marriage will have any authentic power in the way power is played out.
Okay, so can you just predict the age as per your imagination? I mean,
The what?
the age of Jahangir,
The age of Jahangir.
as per your imagination, when he
Well,
was.
this is a time before he was Jahangir. He was still Prince Salim. He had not yet started to become a contender for the throne. So possibly he was a very young man.
Is there any more questions?
Yeah, I
One
have a
last
question.
question.
Yeah, this sounds like a great story for to be seen on the big screen. Would you like to see it made into a film or something?
This Anarkali?
Yeah, with superpowers and like.
I'd have to write it as a novel or novella then. I mean, we'd have to make it a much bigger story because this is one short story embedded within an anthology of many short stories. But why not? We could even
Yeah,
think
and
about
there's a really
it.
strong tradition of graphic novels being translated into cinema. So I think it's a great possibility, particularly with being able to use special effects or a full feature animation. Why not?
Yes, why
Yeah.
not? I think we're completely out of time, so
We
we'll
are.
wrap this up.
Okay, thank you so much.
Please join me in thanking Mandy Ord and Annie Zaid for their wonderful talk, Anarkali. They will be signing books in the Amazon book tent, which is out the front, to the right, and then it's on your left.